Coming up on this episode of The Social Hour, Amber and I will be speaking with none other than Guy Kawasaki. He's the chief evangelist for Canva.com. Have you heard of it? He's going to tell you all about it. Plus, we're going to talk a little bit about hockey and a lot of other stuff coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is The Social Hour with Sarah Lane and Amber MacArthur, episode 166, recorded Thursday, June 12th, 2014. This episode of The Social Hour is brought to you by lynda.com. Learn what you want, when you want, with access to over 2,400 high-quality online courses, all for one low monthly price. To try it free for 7 days, visit lynda.com/social hour. That's lynda.com/social hour. And by 99 Designs, the world's largest graphic design marketplace. 99 Designs connects businesses seeking quality, affordable designs with a community of more than 300,000 graphic designers. Visit 99designs.com/social hour and receive a free Power Pack upgrade valued at $99.
Welcome to The Social Hour. I'm Amber MacArthur, and Sarah Lane will be joining us pretty soon in the next few minutes. But right now, we have Guy Kawasaki, who is on the line via Skype video from a locker room. We've had you on the show before, Guy, but I have to say we've never had you in a locker room. What are you doing?
I am getting ready to play hockey. So the game starts in a few minutes. The Zamboni's off the ice. The water is freezing. So I couldn't resist being on your show, but I also love hockey. So, it was a tough choice today. So I'm trying to thread the needle and do both.
I love it. So how many minutes do we actually have with you? Can we squeeze in 10?
10, yeah. Oh, yeah, 10. Okay. I'll just think of it as 2 fighting penalties.
Okay. You really should be Canadian, right? You realize that?
I am a Canadian stuck in a Hawaiian body. I keep telling you that. So.
I am realizing that very quickly. All right. So one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on The Social Hour again is that you're always doing new and interesting things. And most recently, I saw online that you have joined a company as their chief evangelist. Can you talk a little bit about that move and what that means to you?
Yes. This is a company called Canva, Canva. It's out of Sydney, Australia. And basically what it does is it enables people to create really beautiful graphics very easily. So think of it as sort of a fast, free, and easy way to create great graphics using an online system without having to buy a high-end tool or even more troublesome learning a high-end tool. And the company had seen that I was using its products for my social media graphics and reached out to me, and one thing led to another. And this company, I'm into democratization of stuff. So I think Apple democratized computers and eBay democratized commerce and Google democratized information. And Canva can democratize basically design. So it's kind of exciting.
So what does your role entail? I mean, I'm imagining you're going around talking about Canva, but is it more than that? Because I do believe I tuned into a webinar you were doing with Canva, so it seems as though you're pretty deeply involved with them.
Yes, it's a full-time job for me. Basically, I go around talking about Canva. I do a lot on social media for Canva. I do lots of webinars about social media and the perfect post. I did a perfect post webinar for Mari Smith and for HubSpot, and tomorrow I'm going to do one for marketing profs. So, we're strong believers that visual marketing is the key, that if you want to succeed today, it's not just about text. You have to have beautiful graphics to gain attention and to gain credibility. And Canva is probably the easiest way to make this happen.
It's interesting you talk about visual social media because this is something we talk about all the time on the show. I think it was Mary Meeker's Internet Report where I read something along the lines of the fact that we remember about 10% of what we hear, but up to 80% of what we see and what we do. So this concept of having visual social media in any marketing campaign is so much more important. And I know you have some great tips for that I heard in one of the webinars. Could you share some of those with us?
Sure. Well, the first tip is in social media, I think that every post should have a graphic or an embedded video. I mean, literally every post. And if you want to stand out in the billions of tweets and posts and updates and all that, it's just absolutely necessary. It's really, there's sort of two legs to stand on in social media. First, great graphics, and second, great information. And so you have to have a valuable post, not just a pretty post. And I think value in a post comes from providing information or analysis or assistance or entertainment. So it's one of those four things coupled with a great graphic, and that's the gist of great social media.
So is this content perhaps for your next book? Because every time we talk to you, you're always working on some type of book or
Yes.
another.
Actually, I am working on another book. It's called The Art and Science of Social Media, Power Tips for Power Users. And
great.
that'll be out in July, in time for Blogger 2014.
Are you doing this one as an ebook as well?
It might be only an ebook ever.
Okay.
I'm big into self-publishing, and it's the middle of June. If a traditional book was going to be out by Blogger, which is the third week of July, we would have had to have completed that book, probably last July. So in our case, we're going to finish that book. We're going to press the publish button on Kindle, July 19th or something. And 8 hours later, July 20th, it'll be for sale. So that's the nature of self-publishing. And, if there are any self-publishers out there, we just created a series of designs for Kindle ebook covers. So now you can go to Canva, you can select from a bunch of different designs, change the text, change the graphics, and create a great cover in 10 minutes.
Awesome. We've also had you on the show before where you've talked at length about Google Plus, and I know you've been a real avid fan of Google Plus. Are you still using it as much? Do you still see such potential for the platform in the future?
Yeah. My romance with Google Plus continues without any change. I happen to just love it. That's where I do most of my posting, and it's been a very powerful platform for me. And it kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy. You pour your heart into one platform like that, and it becomes successful. So you pour more of your heart into it. And I just love Google Plus, and it is from Google, which is the 8,000-pound gorilla. So you're showing my Google Plus feed right now, and you'll notice that every one of those posts has a picture.
Yeah.
And that's quite on purpose. And the physics of keeping cool, that graphic was made in Canva, and it probably took a few minutes. So that's the nature of what we're trying to do. We're trying to empower people to have these great social media posts.
It's funny. I just had an experience. I just got access to published content on LinkedIn, and I just posted my first article today, which is awesome. I can't believe the views I've had already in the comments. But I noticed when I first went to add a photo, my image wasn't very interesting, but I saw afterwards how it showed up in the feed on LinkedIn and how important it is to have a beautiful, stunning image, or else you just get lost in the mix. So I imagine Canva is something you could use for that as well.
Oh yeah, we if people looked at my LinkedIn timeline, they would see graphic after graphic. I'll tell you, LinkedIn is the unsung hero of social media, and I have about 600,000 or 700,000 followers there. But the conversation is much more serious, and I think it's because people are who they say they are on LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, you're fundamentally looking for a job, or might be looking for a job, or looking to do biz dev, or looking for partnerships or something. So you can't be Lonely Boy 15 on LinkedIn. You have to really be Amber MacArthur. And Amber MacArthur on LinkedIn is not going to post dumbass stuff and make dumbass comments, because you're figuring that the producer of NBC might be looking at your LinkedIn articles, so you're not going to put something really stupid. So I think LinkedIn is a much more serious platform, and therefore it's much more valuable.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, one of the things that Hey, Sarah, how are you doing?
I just sort of slinked in while you guys were talking, and I tried to be as quiet as possible because it was interesting and I was learning something. Guy, can I just ask you for 1 second, because we're talking about LinkedIn.
Yep.
Why is it that if I turn off all email notifications from LinkedIn, that somehow they just keep creeping back? LinkedIn finds reasons to keep sending them to me.
That's called good marketing.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually true. You know, what's funny is every time that happens, I get annoyed and I say, LinkedIn, why? Well, actually, maybe I should see how many friend requests I have or, invitations to connect.
I never accept those friend requests, like literally never. And LinkedIn at one point told me that I had the most pending requests of anybody on LinkedIn. So, my theory with LinkedIn is I will help a friend. I will even help a friend of a friend, but I'm not going to help a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And so, by definition, I only make links with people I truly know well, and I don't know tens of thousands of people well, and I'm surely not going to help a friend of a friend of a friend of somebody I barely know. So that's kind of my test for LinkedIn.
I just have one last question, and I know you're going to go off and play hockey.
Yeah.
Maybe Sarah has another question after this as well. But the article I had written about on LinkedIn was about Twitter and how I found it to be a much less interactive platform. People not responding as much, getting kind of lazy with just clicking on the favorite button and no conversations happening there. Are you having a similar experience? Is that platform as important to you?
It is important for me as a broadcast mechanism. It's also important to measure sentiment to see, what are people saying about Canva. I think the reason why it's hard to be interactive there is because there's no real threading, right? So if you post something and unless someone knows enough to reply with @Amber MacArthur starting the message, you really won't know. You won't get a notification. You would have to be constantly searching for @Amber MacArthur, and there could be so many of those that they fly by you and you won't notice. So I think that is one of the beauties of Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, that there's threaded commenting. It's just a different kind of beast, but it is nonetheless a very useful beast.
Guy, excellent. I wanted to just, and yes, I know that you have to go in a couple minutes. I wanted to ask you what you thought about the news that Ali Ragani, who's the COO rather, until today of Twitter, stepping down. There's Recode had a story last night that it had to do with the fact that Twitter isn't getting enough users on a regular basis. That partnerships with companies like SoundCloud didn't end up working out. What are your thoughts on how this changes Twitter going forward?
This is all news to me. I have no idea. I don't even know him or her. So, that's how little I know about him or her, because I don't know if it's a him or her. I really, I read these articles and, okay, so let's take a case where I really know something. So, Vic Gandotra leaves Google+, right? And so the next day, TechCrunch and Wired and Forbes and everybody, they say, oh, this must mean that Google+ is failing and Vic got fired and it's the end of the world for Google+. And I swear to God, these people, they're just making this up. They have no idea. For all you know, Vic Gandotra was so successful, he wanted to go sail yachts for the rest of his life. So hallelujah, man. I wish I could do that. So I never, I think something like Google+ and Twitter and Facebook and all that, if you want to read significance into every single act, God bless you. Have a nice life. But fundamentally, Twitter and Facebook and Google+ and Pinterest and, Instagram, they're kind of institutions. They're in the fabric of social media. So if one person left the company and it tanked the company, I would say that, that's a pretty pathetic statement. I don't think any single person leaving those companies could, tank it alone. So I wouldn't spend time, trying to read the tea leaves in this toilet bowl. Just like, if Twitter works for you, use it. If it doesn't, don't use it. But don't make yourself crazy about what's happening inside. Just use it till it doesn't work for you. What's the problem here?
Well, I guess then my question would be, you say, well, I don't know who the CEO is. It's a man, by the way, but okay, no, he's a male. But okay, regardless of how executives are shifting around behind the scenes, what would be your, because I know that you use Twitter, maybe not exactly the same way a lot of other people use Twitter, but it's definitely a great way to blast out something to a lot of folks at once. it has Twitter has changed a lot in the last 6 months. There's a redesign on the web version. The apps are getting new functionality like mute and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you like the way that it's going? Do you feel like it's becoming more complicated or a better product?
I think it's getting to be a better and better product. There's certainly fundamental limitation of 140 characters. I recently discovered, to my utter amazement, that not only can you post pictures, you can post multiple pictures. So you just, attach a picture, then you click on that same button and attach more pictures. I had no idea you could do this. And so I think it's getting better and better. But, hey, hallelujah, man. I use Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Google Plus and Pinterest. And I'm a social media whore, or s'more as we call it. I mean, that's the business I'm in, right? So I have to do it all. So,
and
okay.
we should probably let you go play hockey as a fellow Canadian. I'm going to say get on the ice and good luck.
Okay. And please tell everybody to just give Canva a try, okay? I promise you, you will love the way it works to make graphics.
Awesome. I can't wait. Thank you so much, Guy.
Thans for joining us, Guy, and stay
Bye.
safe out there on the ice. Hockey's it's a combat sport. I'm not sure, Amber, how much you were able to walk through Canva with Guy before I got my mic all situated here, but I had a chance to once I knew that he was on the show. And by the way, Amber, for anybody who doesn't know, she's a real excellent last minute, down to the wire guest booker, I have to say.
Ew.
So yeah, once I knew Guy was on the show, I was like, the best thing about him is, and I would say he probably joins us on the social hour, let's say maybe if we're lucky twice a year. And every time it's, I have to go and figure out what his new bio is, because he holds so many hats. He's involved in so many projects. It's never as if he's leaving anything. He just sort of jumps on a new project, and then that's part of his whole repertoire. So yeah, I had some time playing around with Canva and creating designs. And I wasn't really that familiar with it before, besides I knew that Guy was associated with it, and I'm really impressed.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I think one of the things he talked about, Sarah, just off the top of our interview, was just how important it is in the social media process, especially if you're trying to market yourself or market your company, to have images. We've talked so much about the rise of visual social media, and this makes it easy if you need to attach a really creative image to a blog post that you're doing, or just a social media post that you want to put online. So it's a really cool service, and I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, Guy is always on the cutting edge of what's next, right? He was an early adopter with Google+. He's always at the forefront of what's happening in this space. He just mentioned, I don't know if you heard him, that he's writing another book that will be out in the summertime, talking about social media tips. And he's always moving and doing something new and interesting, and this is no exception.
No, and I love the fact that Guy is, the title chief evangelist always comes up with him. Not that he's the chief evangelist of everything that he's working on, but he is with Canva. At one point, it was that with Apple. It's been this. It's an interesting title, because I think that if I were to call myself a chief evangelist or something, I don't think I could pull it off. It does take a certain kind of personality, the way that a lot of different titles in sort of the social space, the technology space, work for certain people who have certain skills. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Guy is so good at, his enthusiasm is very genuine, and he doesn't mince words. And whenever he talks, it's like, I feel like it's just, you're just getting the straight story about what's going on. I said, what do you think about these things happening behind the scenes at Twitter? And he's like, I mean, I don't think anything about it. And why do you? And it's like, yeah, you have a pretty good point, actually.
I think that's why he's so likable, right?
Yes, exactly.
He's just one of those people who's so knowledgeable, and like you said, he's very authentic, a very, very real person, and very practical, and he really understands how to use all these tools. I mean, when he started using Twitter in the early days, and he used it as a platform to really blast out messages, a lot of people kind of attacked him a bit here and there. There was a lot of content being pushed out, but at the end of the day, that's how a lot of us ended up using Twitter. So I think he definitely is a trailblazer in that sense, and it's always fun having him on the show, especially because who knows where he's going to be, Sarah. He's in a hotel room doing a speaking event, or he's in a locker room about to play hockey. I mean, I don't know.
Hockey locker room, that is a first. even for us.
That's commitment,
And
you know?
and we've got people joining us from all sorts of places, but that is a first. And, you know, it's during the Stanley Cup. I mean, it could not be more relevant. Not that I'm really watching the Stanley Cup, Amber. I don't know if you are, but the World Cup starts today in less than an hour, actually. Yay! Brazil plays. Nope, nobody knows. I'm the only person in this office who cares. Not a big sports place, Twit TV. Besides Leo and Lisa, I don't know if anybody else here is really following.
I love how you were looking for somebody to yell an answer.
Yeah, no, it's just crickets all the way down. Brazil plays Croatia. Best luck to both teams. It's kind of cool that Brazil's kicking it off, considering that they're hosting the World Cup. But that's neither here nor there. Well, Amber, thanks so much for getting Guy Kawasaki on the show. And as he mentioned right before he disconnected with us, Canva.com, Canva, like Canvas without the S.com. Definitely check it out if you're interested in sort of icons and graphics and stuff that you can add to an existing presence online, which is something that, of course, we talk about all the time is really, really important, especially if you want to be social and connect to a lot of people. Before we get into some of our news and tips and good stuff over the week, we should take a moment to thank lynda.com for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. You know, speaking of being social and knowing what tools you need and doing all the right stuff and software, and hey, there's a lot of work involved if you're just kind of starting out and you want to seem professional. Lynda.com can keep you up to date with software skills, brand new skills. Really, you can explore hobbies even. It doesn't even have to be anything that's related to work, with easy to follow video tutorials. Really anything, you know, from your livelihood to just an interesting hobby. Maybe the latest online tools you feel like, I don't know, you're a little behind. I feel that way sometimes. Maybe you want to improve your Photoshop skills. That is still today one of the most powerful programs that you can master, and yet most of us don't, and it is complicated. There's a lot going on with Photoshop. Maybe,
and Sarah, I just want to mention they have some great LinkedIn courses, because we talked a lot about that with Guy.
That's another thing too, is, hey, if you still feel like LinkedIn is that site where you build your resume and add people that you used to work with, you're not using it to its full potential. It is that, but it's a lot more. LinkedIn, that's a great example, Amber. We have video courses, variety of topics. That's the kind of cool thing about Lynda. In fact, over 2,400 courses. So this isn't like 15 courses or 100 or 500. I mean, it's 2,400 courses, and more are added weekly. So the library is always growing. All of lynda.com courses are produced at really high quality. These are not sort of like, oh, I shot this video because I know what I'm talking about. I mean, this is professional stuff. Lynda.com works with software companies so that when a software company releases a new product, there is a training video on lynda.com that's going to keep you up to date. So you're never like 2 versions behind. You are absolutely on the forefront of technology. And the instructors are all professionals. So you are being taught by somebody who knows exactly what they're talking about. But not only that, they're passionate about what they're talking about. Also, maybe you are a complete beginner and you feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to be in some tutorial that's a little bit beyond me. Lynda.com has courses for beginner, intermediate, and advanced, so you can really kind of pick up wherever you need to. Plus, you can watch on your computer or your mobile device or your tablet or whatever. It's very device friendly. Lynda.com offers certificates of completion when you finish a course. That's something you could put on your LinkedIn profile. Hey, I am a Photoshop expert, or I know everything about After Effects. Gosh, I would love to say that because I don't. If you're a professional in the field, it just kind of helps beef up your credentials. It's $25 a month, only $25 a month to access the entire lynda.com course library. For $25, you could learn a lot in a month, or for $37.50 a month, you can subscribe to a premium plan, and that gives you exercise files. It kind of digs a little bit deeper, kind of premium materials that lets you follow along with an instructor's project using the same assets that they're using. So it's just a deeper level. So you've got 2 little price points there. And here's the best. You can try lynda.com right now, literally right this second, or maybe when you're done watching the show, with a free 7-day trial. So you can hang out on lynda.com absolutely free for 7 days. Watch as many courses as you like. lynda.com/social hour. We'll let you access the entire library. That's over 2,400 courses completely free for 7 days. In fact, they have a little playlist in there to get you started if you feel overwhelmed, crippled by choice. lynda.com/social hour. Start that free trial, 7 days, and check out and see how great lynda.com is and how much it will teach you things that you never knew you needed to know, or maybe you do. And thanks to lynda.com for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. Well, Amber, before the break, I asked Guy Kawasaki how he felt about the news that Ali Rogani, who is a male and has been the COO, Chief Operating Officer, at Twitter for about 4 years. I believe he came from Pixar, if I'm remembering correctly, where he was CFO. Came into Twitter as CFO, which is Chief Financial Officer, moved up, I guess, at least at Twitter, maybe not every company, but that's sort of if you're running operations completely. And, kind of seemed like, a possible candidate to run the company at some point, according to people who are familiar with his role at the company. Well, he is, Kara Swisher over at Recode last night posted that she thought that he was on his way out. Not 12 hours later, he officially resigned. And yes, a lot of folks who are in the industry say, well, it has a lot to do with the fact that as operating officer, he was responsible for a certain part of the product that was growing the user base. And that's something that ever since Twitter went public is of the utmost importance. And Twitter has been criticized for not growing fast enough. They certainly are growing, but not necessarily as fast as some analysts think that they need to be on par with, the Facebooks or even the Pinterests, which is, a very fast-growing company. I don't know what this means, Amber. Nothing's changed yet, obviously, except the fact that somebody who's at a very high level is no longer with the company. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of tend to agree with Guy a little bit on this one in the sense that I don't think that you can tell just based on the departure of one person that a company is all of a sudden going to tank. Obviously, with Twitter, it's a situation where they still have a pretty strong user base, but like you said, they weren't anticipating, they didn't achieve the growth that they had anticipated or planned. But again, I think it's harder and harder for some of these social networks to grow their user base, especially when you have all of these networks growing, developing kind of on the fringe, and they are kind of eating away at some of the big social media platforms out there. So I'm not sure that it signifies the end of Twitter in any way or that it's going down. I think Twitter, though, as a platform itself, I've noticed more and more, and I go back to this point of engagement. For me personally as a user, the engagement seems to be less and less there all the time.
You do? You think so?
I do. I just think, I had written an article this morning that was talking about how the favorite button on Twitter is making us lazy, because I noticed myself, and we've talked about this before, like I'll hit favorite on everything where I used to have conversations on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not doing that as much anymore. So I posted this article on LinkedIn, my first ever writing one on LinkedIn, and I have 15 comments. People are, interacting back and forth. And that was the quality that I used to love about Twitter, right? It was that back and forth, those conversations. And more, I think it is really just like a news feed or a broadcast platform. And maybe that's okay.
Yeah, there is something strange about that whole favorite thing, or faving, as we say, as the verb. And that is something where 6 months ago, I never looked at how many favorites anything of mine got. It was just because I didn't use Twitter that way. When I favorited something, it was because, that's something that I could talk about on the social hour later. Or let me bookmark this for myself. Or, that's an app that maybe I should check out for one of my, iOS shows. Now, the favorite thing is like this very passive, like, kudos, wink, I saw that, but without making it noisy for anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same issue with like on Facebook or on LinkedIn or plus oneing on Google Plus. I mean, I think sometimes our tendency with these social platforms is we get lazy. We forget that one of the key features that I think many of us used to like is the fact that people would engage and comment and have conversations. And some of these buttons, I think, make us a little passive, like you said.
Right, and I don't think it's a bad thing that there's an option to not clutter up other people's streams with what you like and don't like. But it's become this thing where, sometimes I'll say something, I shared a link to a trailer for Sin City 2 yesterday, because it's like, I loved the first Sin City and I'm really excited, and I didn't even really know that they were making another one, and anyway. And I kept going back to see how many people had faved my tweet because I wanted to know who else was into it. But it's like, that is now the way that I see who's into it, rather than looking at a retweet or even a reply back to me. It's interesting. I don't know if I have a problem with it necessarily, but it is a much more, I'm going to go ahead and, give you a pat on the back, but maybe no one else really will know about it unless they deliberately seek it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a content creator, it's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because all of a sudden your content isn't traveling. I mean, if you're someone who uses Twitter just because you like using Twitter, who cares if someone favorites something or retweets something? But for myself and for you, Sarah, as a content creator, and you think people used to retweet stuff all the time, and now they're just favoriting it and no one really ever sees that passive experience, I think it has a negative effect on the content that we're trying to share. Whereas if I go to other platforms, which is why I'm getting more and more into Google Plus all the time, I do at least find that people are having conversations there. So I still love Twitter, probably my number one platform, and I find myself more consuming content there than really engaging and having conversations. And I don't think it was always like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Twitter is. I worry that Twitter's getting away from itself, and maybe that's just because every time I go to my web version of Twitter, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get out of here. I have to go back to one of my apps because it's somewhat of a mess. And we've talked about the fact that Twitter is rumored to be, looking into introducing sort of weighted tweets so that if something has a lot of engagement, you might see more of it. And if I look at Amber's stream, it's not just going to be a linear view of all the things that she's tweeted in the last however many hours. It's going to, rise and change depending on an algorithm of what's popular and that sort of thing. While we were talking to Guy, I don't remember who it was, but somebody in chat said, ask Guy why he tweets the same links over and over. And, Guy has addressed this on our show in the past. He didn't, today on this show, but he said, listen, this is a way for me to let people know what's going on. And Twitter is way too noisy for me to expect. He's got, 1.4 million followers. Not everybody's going to see that first tweet. Not everybody's going to see the second tweet. In fact, if I'm lucky, somebody sees one of the 10 times that I tweet out something that I think is really interesting. And, if you don't like it, that's cool. But that's the way that I reach the most amount of people. And that's not the tactic that works for everybody, but it's the one that works for him, and he's sticking to it. And I think, I respect that.
Yeah, I mean, he's always talked about the fact that, like you said, people would miss content if he didn't do that, people in different time zones. So it is an issue of all of the noise that is on Twitter currently. So it does make sense. I know it does irritate people, and I think we've even asked him that question in the past. And what he has said that for every person he loses, perhaps he gets 9 more people who see his content and who subscribe to his feed. So obviously it's a winning formula for him. Sarah, we are going to end up talking again about temporary social media or disappearing social media. Seems like it's a theme on the show. It more and more, there's all these different services out there, not just Snapchat. This is an interesting story that we're going to talk about Path, who's retroactively making all messages temporary. I'm not using Path anymore, and I think you said last week that you've kind of stepped off Path as well for a little bit, but what do you think of this news?
Well, yes, I am. I haven't, it's funny. I've got friends who sort of go I'm not using Path anymore. I've deleted it. And I never delete apps like that. I don't have a problem with Path, and I know that there are a lot of people who are still using it. But yeah, on a daily or even weekly basis, it is not one of my go-to apps anymore. I have all these notifications in my little Path, because I haven't looked at anything, so I don't even know if anyone's messaged me. But what Path has decided to do, and this is not just if Amber and I are friends on Path, then the messages don't last that long. This is just for Path, the back channel. It's like DMs. It's like Twitter direct messages for Path. What Path will now do is only allow them to exist for 24 hours. Now, That's obviously in response to the popularity of what's known as ephemeral messaging. So that's Snapchat. Facebook's got a Snapchat competitor called Slingshot that ended up being released to the App Store early, and then they pulled it, and we know it's coming. So Facebook's going to give that another go. There's some new ephemeral messaging capabilities on Tinder that we talked about last week. Maybe it's a fad, maybe it's here to stay, but it's definitely a fad of some kind. It's very popular. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that makes Path any more, some sort of a go-to tool for me, unless Path is thinking to themselves, okay, well, if Sarah and Amber are friends on Path, you can only have 150 friends, and there's this whole sharing thing that's going on, but Sarah and Amber really want to talk about some stuff that they don't want a paper trail for, and it's not for the consumption of that 150 friends, in the big sandbox. Well, they can just stay within Path to do it. I guess that's attractive. I feel like maybe if you're used to messages being a certain way in Path, it might be less attractive, because not everybody wants messages to disappear. Not everybody has stuff that they say that they don't want to go back to later.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really know if I think this is a real big move for them. It's going to change all of a sudden the landscape as far as the number of users that they have. I know in the Business Insider article that we have in the show notes, it talks about the fact that, Path values the privacy, obviously limiting, like you said, to 150 friends that you can have using that social network. And maybe this does make sense because you want more and more privacy. But I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case. It seems more of a kind of Me Too function that they've added to Path, that they, kind of obviously picking up on this trend that's happening right now with disappearing social media. And I don't think that's going to change the Path experience for that many people. In fact, it could just be frustrating, right?
Exactly.
With stuff disappearing all over the place.
If you're still using Path, for anyone who is using Path, if all of a sudden, and you use it as a way to chat, and Path has been for me a way where, kind of like Twitter direct messages would be, or even Facebook Messenger. Maybe I'm connected to somebody on Path, and I don't know, for whatever reason, they're not in my text messages, and it's a nice, easy way to get a hold of somebody, especially if they've just recently posted within the Path experience. And so it's like, that they're not far from the app. Oh, they've been in there, they're active. I've definitely sent people some messages through Path, and you get little read receipts, and that's nice, and the product works just fine. I just don't. Not everything needs to disappear.
It's interesting. I was speaking at a conference yesterday in Nashville, and someone in the audience came up to me afterwards, and he was a parent of a teenager, and he was saying to me that he thought many of these apps that had disappearing social media, in fact, were doing a disservice to teens because the language that they're using is somewhat misleading, right? So all of a sudden, teens think that these messages are disappearing entirely, and he thought that it sort of set them up so they thought that, oh, this is all private, I can say whatever I want, and we'll just go away. So it's interesting to look at his perspective as the parent of a teen to see how he thinks that this is the worst thing that could ever happen to that age group.
Yeah, absolutely, because that age group is, well, yeah, you need to understand the definition of things for sure, especially when you're sending sensitive material. Amber, Leo and I actually talked about this the other day on iPad Today, and I don't even have an article necessarily that we can show, but that the app Secret, which I'm just going to trash once more because it keeps giving me reasons to, has now introduced a feature of the service where you've got your feed of anonymous posts that's based on your contact list. But that they are going to, they have introduced a new sort of subset called dens, secret dens, where you can connect with everybody you work with or connect with everybody you go to school with, for example, so that in a specific den, it's not just somebody on my contact list, it's definitely somebody that I go to school with. I hate this idea, and the reason that I hate it is because I think about kids saying terrible things about other kids, and it almost encourages the behavior that much more, because if something comes out of a den, you say, ooh, well, maybe it was Kathy who said this, because it's obviously somebody I went to school with, not just somebody that I might know and I don't even understand the context. It feels to me as if Secret says, this is where, even though it can be very nasty, this is where our real potential lies, because it's the age group that, they love the idea of saying stuff, and maybe it's gossipy, and ooh, these messages go away, or ooh, you can't track it back to me, and it just encourages bad behavior.
Yeah, I mean, as if that age group doesn't have enough problems already
Right.
with being able to manage their online presence and trying to be good digital citizens. And then all of these tools come out that are marketed towards them that lend themselves to cyberbullying being able to take place, right? It's very frustrating to hear about some of these tools. So I think you're right. The secret-filled dens or whatever they're calling them. I mean, it just seems like it's, again, doing a big disservice to that age group. And it's something we don't really need more of, right? I don't know. I just have to roll my eyes, just like a teenager would do.
Right, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah.
Like it's not, I am always drawn to those stories that are talking about social good and being good digital citizens. But more and more, I mean, it's like you have those companies and those technology companies and software manufacturers who are trying to, or software makers who are trying to, pull us into a world where we're kind of being better. And then there's these other companies that are kind of still sucking us down. And Secret seems to fall into that category.
Then again, I still have to always remind myself that so much of the popularity of these new services is driven by the teenage age group. It's not driven by us. We're just people who work in the industry who say, oh, there's this new thing called Snapchat. I should start using it so that I know what I'm talking about. Oh, okay, these are how these tools work. This is weird. And sometimes I can wrap my head around it, and sometimes we have this conversation where we say, this seems dangerous. But, it's increasingly for this younger generation. And those are the tools that are, they're getting venture capital money to grow, and they're turning down offers from Facebook to buy them for billions of dollars, and it's a whole new breed. And just stay safe out there, kids. I guess.
I know. That's why
what I'm getting at.
I have to love technologies out there like crowdfunding, right? Kickstarter, all these platforms. I think at the end of the day, if they allow people to raise money, or there's platforms that allow people to raise money for certain causes, I mean, that's kind of the good and positive side of the internet. But more and more with some of these little apps and social networks where I don't think there is really any good element to them. It's frustrating to hear about them. But maybe we're just getting old, Sarah.
I really do. I do think that this is. We're getting to be on the cusp of tools that we say, well, that's not how the internet works. Why do we need these tools? We never had this before, and we're starting to sound like our parents. And I just, and I don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily, but it's like I think that's starting to happen. It's not just us; it's all of my peers. We're all starting to sound a little bit like, what's this all about? It was fine before, but life doesn't work that way. Certainly, social networking doesn't work that way because we're constantly evolving. I just hope we're evolving in the right direction.
We can only hope.
We can only hope. Should we move on to our social tip of the week?
Yeah, so this is a really quick one. If you're a Pinterest user, and we know there are lots of people using Pinterest, we had someone on last week, a man talking about Pinterest, which is kind of a different look at Pinterest. But they have announced that their guided search feature is now available not just on mobile, but also on the web version of Pinterest. So that means you can go there. Eventually, this will be rolled out to all users over the next few weeks. You can go there and do a search, and you can get pretty specific with that search. One of the examples they show here is that if you're searching for, say, barbecue chicken, you'll then see this slider on the top of the search results that allows you to slide over and get even more specific with your search to find specific content on Pinterest. So they're guiding you in terms of the search process, which I think is awesome because I think historically search on Pinterest really hasn't worked very well, and there's lots of room for improvement.
I think so too. Amber, the other day, I couldn't have a better little personal story. I thought to myself, maybe I would like to get a tattoo, but I don't know what I want. Where do I go online? Pinterest. That seems like a great place. And so I just typed in tattoo woman. Because I thought, well, maybe something that seems like a little more appropriate for, I don't know, like a woman. And It was sort of a mess because I wasn't specific enough. I kind of wasn't using Pinterest in the way that it was meant to be used. I was using it like a search engine. And so there were some results that were interesting, but I felt like I could have used a little bit more of Pinterest guided search to sort of remind me of how it works better.
Yeah.
And no, this is really nice.
And let's not forget how much content they have on Pinterest. I just read a stat recently that said that Pinterest has, in terms of food boards, so just boards dealing with food, there are more than 100 million, Sarah. I mean, that's a ton of boards. So you can imagine that there are plenty of opportunities to refine the search and make it better so that users just have an improved experience because there's just so much content there. So it's a good little tip. And like I said, it'll be rolled out to users in the next few weeks. I don't currently have it, but I'm looking forward to having it.
Why don't we get everything first? Gosh, you know? We do. Well, actually, I do have the new Skype finally, which we'll talk about.
We're going to talk about that, right?
We'll talk about it in a second. But before we do, I really think that we should talk about This Week in Cat, which is something that Amber made up. I guess you could call it Twick, or
yes, This Week in Cat. There's always something cat-related on the social hour. And actually, Sarah, do you guys have any cafes in San Francisco that are cat-friendly cafes?
No, but there is a cafe, a cat cafe that is coming to town called Kitty, like Kitea, Kitty, meow. And it hasn't launched yet, but I am following them on Twitter, and I've sort of given them a little free PR because I'm excited about it. But it's going to happen. There's one in New York. I know that there are several in Japan. I think there's one in London.
Yeah, there's one opening in Toronto in my neighborhood. I think
really?
We're going to be the first, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you have to do a social hour from the cat cafe.
Oh, that would be fun. Except that I'm allergic to cats, but you know.
Oh, yeah, that would probably not be a fun place for you to hang out then.
I'll just stay away from them. But it's a good idea.
But then you'd sneeze a lot, and you'd make the 5 people who love to watch you sneeze that watch the show very happy indeed.
I would add to the YouTube montages that exist currently about me sneezing. Nonetheless, sorry to go off track here. I was just thinking about the cat cafe.
That's right.
But Grumpy Cat, we talked about Grumpy Cat in the past. Grumpy Cat has a movie coming out this holiday season. Exciting times for anyone who loves Grumpy Cat.
Good
An
work,
article
Grumpy.
here on Mashable talking about Grumpy Cat's live action movie called Grumpy Cat's Worst Christmas Ever, about a lonely kitty in a mall pet store, and I guess she's pretty grumpy throughout the course of the movie. I don't know much more about it, but I thought I would share with you, Sarah, because I'm sure you're a grumpy cat.
Cat's movie will probably be funnier than The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which is sort of same idea, really, you know? Oh, I love the Grumpy Cat meme. I just don't get sick of it ever. She's just such a little grump. I'm thrilled. I will be watching this movie.
Are you good? Like, would you actually go see this movie in a movie theater?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's a Lifetime movie, right? So it's probably not going to be in a theater, but I would have a viewing party.
Like if there was a screen, yeah, you would have a viewing party.
I would totally do that. In fact, I already know who I would invite, and they would all come.
Really?
Uh-huh. There's a good 10 of us who are like, we're just nuts. Let's hang out together.
I love it. It's awesome. Anyway, we'll put a link to that in our show notes if you want to know more about the Grumpy Cat movie. And I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that because you apparently can't go wrong with cats on the internet.
Absolutely not. You know, I mentioned that the new Skype for iPhone had been pushed to me. People had a problem with this morning because, so earlier in the week, Skype, owned by Microsoft, had announced on a blog, hey, Skype for iPhone has been completely redesigned. It will be rolling out hopefully sometime this week. They might have said week or next week. And I was like, oh, how exciting, but there is none. And this morning, they did roll out the update, but it was weird because it went live in a lot of iTunes stores in various countries and then was pulled, at least in the US it was, and I couldn't download it until I actually deleted Skype and then re-downloaded it, reinstalled it rather, from the App Store as if I never had it. But it is completely, and Anthony, I don't know if you have an over-the-shoulder shot. Yeah, you do. Well, it's a very white screen, so there's not too much to see, but we've got recent here. The idea is that it has, oh, you know what I'll do? I'll just turn this down a little bit so you can see. There you go. It has kind of gotten just sort of more swipe happy. Recent people that I've talked to, favorites. Now, favorites, there's nothing in there because I don't use Skype on my iPhone really at all. And in fact, this is the same account that I barely use anyway. It's more like a test account. But the idea with favorites is that it's not like your favorite people, but it's the people that you talk to the most. And that's like, it's like a little, easy way to just bring up Amber. If she's the person that I almost always am the one who's going to want to, I'm going to want to Skype call her rather than like scrolling through an alphabetical list, of all my contacts, which would be more of the people section. And it's kind of nice. It goes in a little circle. You get recent's favorite people, and then of course you've got your little your number pad here, and then variety of settings. Add people, mark all as read. That's more for the messaging. Looks like I've got a friend request here, but in general, I mean, it's not like it's doing anything different. It's still Skype, but it's
pretty
much
slick though.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten. There's my little chat window here. Echo Sound Test Service. I have no idea who that is. But yeah, it seems to be heavier on the text messaging, which of course, for a mobile device, like, it's not, any phone running iOS or Android or Windows Phone or whatever, that makes a lot of sense. And also Microsoft being smart enough to say, well, Skype is obviously video messaging, but you can just use it as a text message service as well. So why not make it more user-friendly for that too, so that people use Skype as their primary way to talk to contacts? I don't know. I'm excited for the future of Skype, especially just because, of course, at Twit we use Skype so much, even though it's in a very specific way. But I want Skype to be a better product all around.
I totally agree
so
with
yes, if you haven't seen the new Skype for iPhone and you do use iPhone, you might have a little bit of issues downloading from the App Store as they're just kind of rolling out in waves. But it does exist, and it is here today. It is official.
Perfect. I'm going to download it. I definitely need that.
All right, we love hearing from all of you. We're so busy today. We didn't really have a lot of time to take many live emails or tweets or that kind of good stuff. Of course, you can even leave us a voicemail during the week if you just feel like talking and don't feel like writing, that's fine too. But we do love hearing from you. You can write us at thesocialhour@twit.tv. You can leave us a voicemail at 2626-SOCIAL. That is our Google voicemail box. You can record a video. You can certainly tweet at Amber and I, not just during the show when we record the show live, which, by the way, is Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. If you could join us live and you join the chat room, you can sort of give us feedback on the guests that we have. If you have questions for guests, we try to take those as much as we can so that you're part of the conversation. But of course, if you can't join us live or for whatever reason just prefer to watch us on Saturdays, that's fine too. You can just subscribe to the show. twit.tv/TSH is our website. That is where all of our show archives live. When Amber says things like, hey, the link in our show notes, that's exactly what we're talking about.
All there. Also, there. Speaking of guests, Sarah, I should mention that next week we have the co-founder of Ringly. Ringly is this smart ring that just launched today, and the co-founder, Christina, is going to join us next Thursday on the show. So check out Ringly online, see what you think, and if you have any questions for her, please let us know through social media or email us or send us a video question, because her product is really cool. We've talked a lot about smart technology on the show, so it'll be fun to have someone who's going to join us and talk more about this new product that's getting a ton of attention online.
I am excited too. I'm really excited. In fact, I've been seeing all this chatter online from friends of mine where I'm like, "Oh, we're interviewing her! Yay! It's going to be fun."
I know it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's the online webverse is all a Twitter. I don't know. That did not turn into a sentence that makes any sense. You know what I mean, though.
I know what you mean. A lot of people are talking about Ringly, and it's a really cool product. It's a way to basically be notified if there are messages coming in through your smartphone, through your iPhone. And the jewelry is kind of pretty. I mean, I like this because I think so much of the technology that we've seen recently that is wearable tech is really not that attractive and not something that I'd wear some of the clunky watches or bracelets or bands. But this is different, and there's a nice aesthetic to it that I think will allow them to really penetrate different markets out there.
It sure looks nice. Yeah. I mean, my first thought is I will lose this because that's what I do. However, that's my problem. It's not their problem. That's, it's the same problem I have.
You just need an app to find your Ringly, Sarah.
Right, exactly. Does
That's all
Ringly
you have to
just
do.
buzz loudly or yell at me,
You
when I
put
leave
one of
it?
those little tiles on it, and then
Yeah.
you'll be, it's a little big. But yeah, you're right. I wonder if there's an interesting way to find it. We'll ask Christina next week and see what she has to say.
Oh, exactly.
And see how the company is doing. Because I think,
Yeah.
like you said, they're pretty hot right now.
Yeah, hot stuff. So yeah, that's next week. Join us live if you can. Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. But if not, of course, you'll know that is our guest next week, and you can watch at your leisure. All right, before we wrap up the show with our rad or fad, as we do with every show, let's take a moment to thank 99 Designs for sponsoring this episode of The Social Hour. We've talked a lot about learning skills and having a social media presence and making it look professional and knowing how to connect with people. 99 Designs, that's the visual element of your brand, whether it's your personal brand, whether it's your company's brand, whether you have a small business or a large business, anything can be achieved design-wise by 99 Designs. The purpose of, let's say, your social media page, whether that's, a Facebook page or, your personal blog or anything like that, is you want to engage with your audience. You want people to share your content. You want a banner image that people go like, wow, this looks really nice. Oh, this person definitely knows what they're doing. They're not just like pulling some random image in there. They've got this whole thing figured out. Social media pages that have appealing content, that have good visuals, are just likely to be shared more often. People are more engaged because you seem like you're an authoritative figure on this sort of thing. You can choose more out-of-the-box designs using 99 Designs, as long as the visuals that you choose have consistency with your company's branding. You can get really creative. In fact, you can kind of do stuff that people go, whoa, look at this. Oh, this is kind of interesting and unique. But do you have those design skills yourself? Well, some of you, of course, are designers, sure. Most of you aren't, though. I'm not. I don't know how to do something that's going to wow anybody design-wise. That is where 99 Designs can help, and the professionals who are in the 99 Designs network. You can get designs that create a look and feel that is cohesive across all your social media pages. In fact, they can do this in just a few days, in under a week, really. So if this is an idea you have now, this time next week, your whole social media presence could be greatly improved. You can also see the other creative ideas from designers around the world just by hanging out on 99 Designs and getting a feel for the types of projects that their designers have achieved. If you go to 99designs.com/social hour, you will get for free, completely for free, a $99 power pack of services. This will cost you $0. 99designs.com/social hour. If you're wondering what a power pack is, it gives you more designer time and attention. Basically, you're VIP at 99 Designs. You get more designers who will give you feedback and ideas. You get your project highlighted in their marketplace, so there's just a lot more attention overall. You feel very special, and it will cost you nothing. Or usually $99, $0. You get your design project featured in the marketplace, and yeah, more designs means more likelihood that you are blown away and happy with the design that you choose. Visit 99designs.com/social hour, get that free power pack of services, and thanks to 99 Designs for their support of the Social Hour. We've had a lot of people that have used 99 Designs and given us great feedback. We use them ourselves for our latest t-shirt design. It looks really good.
Oh, is that the tank? I just got a tank top from Twit. That was really cute.
Isn't it great? Yeah.
Yeah, I should have it on right now because I'm sweating to death in here. So
I know.
Next time I'll wear it.
I always feel weird wearing tank tops in the studio because I never know what the temperature is going to be in here. Sometimes I'm hot, sometimes I'm cold, but if for any reason the AC's on, then I'm like tank top, I'll just be freezing, and then you'll see goosebumps. It'll be weird.
It's also hard when you're doing a webcam interview because we don't have any
Right.
like 2 shots or anything. So sometimes you can look naked. I mean, I hate to say it, but that's
Yep.
the reality of like
That's
with long hair. If I
right.
was wearing a tank top right now, it's
Totally. Yes. Tank tops can be, it's a delicate piece of wardrobe when you're doing on-camera work. It can be anyway.
Yes.
It can be done wrong. Anyway, we love 99 Designs. And you know, Amber and I were talking about t-shirts. So that's where it really gets fun because you can design something for your social media page or a flyer or a business card or a piece of clothing. The list goes on. It's all about design. All right, Amber, what is our rad or fad this week?
Okay, so you were talking about things that were getting a lot of attention online. This one is something that I was seeing in my Twitter feed a lot. It's called Drop, and it's an iPad-connected kitchen scale. So I saw a lot of people talking about this and ordering it. It's available for pre-order right now. I think there's also a video online that we can watch in terms of how it works. The idea being that it's a kitchen scale, so you set, let's say if you're baking, you set a bowl on top of it, and it will help you accurately measure all of the different ingredients that you're putting in the bowl based on recipes that are also included within the app. It's also then kind of a community, Sarah, because through the Drop app, you can share photos of things that you have baked or cooked, and it's kind of taking the high-tech technology into the kitchen. But the idea of the scale itself is something I think people have really been drawn to because baking is really a science. You know, you have to be able to measure all the ingredients correctly. Sometimes I get lazy and I don't do that. So it's as they say, it's your very smart, super helpful new baking assistant.
Okay, so let me play devil's advocate just for a moment because, yes, I understand that it's important to, you know, if the recipe calls for a cup of flour, you don't want to deviate from that too much or you're going to get a different recipe. But what's wrong with measuring cups? If I know I need a cup of flour, like, is there some sort of weight thing that I'm not integrating into my baking that would make my baking better?
I feel like it is based on weight. I mean, if you look at the app right now in the video we're watching, I think there is a weight element. Also, it will tell you when your order is ready. So it just kind of connects all those pieces together. I don't know much more than what it says within the video or shows within the video and the app. I just feel like people love these gadgets and gizmos, right? The idea of high-tech technology and stuff in the kitchen, people are just drawn to it. So it's available for pre-order right now for $80. And again, I kept seeing it in my feed. I saw people talking about it. So I don't know. I'm curious what you think, if it's rad or is it a fad?
Well, it shows how much I know about baking because some of our chatters are saying, well, baking, weight is very important with baking, not just, you know, a cup of flour, but it's how much the flour weighs before it goes into, you know, this very delicate pastry thing. I can't even think of a certain kind of pastry, something that's very delicate. But I do a lot of eating of baked goods. I don't do a lot of baking of baked goods.
Smart.
You know, I should ask Leo about this because he's sort of like, he's gone really crazy into this whole baking his own bread thing.
Really?
Yeah, that's all he talks about. And that's fine, that's great. But this, I think what Drop, it seems like what Drop is for is, it's not just for like casual people who say, oh, recipe is fun. It's for people who really want to kind of take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think you're right. And one thing they do as well is they help you resize recipes, which is something that I think people want to know how to do all the time and maybe don't want to do the math on their own. So if you have a recipe that is for 2 people, maybe you're making pizza dough for a small pizza, it will help you resize that and tell you the ingredients and help you measure the whole process. So I think it is, I want to say that I think it is kind of rad for the right person.
I think so.
And I don't think that this stuff is going away anytime soon. I mean, we know that when it comes to smart technology in the home, that's such a big trend like right now that's not going away, particularly in the kitchen.
I think so. I think this is great. Again, it's not every product that comes out is the right product for everybody. You know, the Ringly ring. Not everybody's going to want to wear that. You know, I know a lot of people who are like, I'm just not going to wear a ring. You know, but it can be disruptive and interesting and kind of, you know, push technology further. I think this is great. And by the way, somebody mentioned in chat, oh, we've scrolled past you now, so I can't give you credit, that this could also be really helpful for somebody who is counting calories. because a lot of these sorts of things, it's or keeping some sort of a food journal, and maybe there would be apps that would integrate with Drop later on, where you say, well, I had an apple, but it's like, well, was it a small apple or was it a large apple? Because that changes how much fructose you just ate. So it's kind of that precision part of not just cooking but consuming that can be really, really helpful, because we don't always know how to eyeball how much a piece of anything really contains.
Sarah, I would love to do a show that was a high-tech kitchen show where you got to test out all these gadgets in the kitchen. I'm not a cook or a baker, but that would be a fun show to do, don't you think?
Yes, I do. In fact, I have floated the idea past the powers that be here at TWIT a million times, and everyone always says, that's a great idea, and then we never do anything. So I think it's a great idea. I do. Sometimes I worry that we'd run out of cool technology gadgets, but I don't think we would run out of things for a while, and they keep making new ones.
I don't think you would run out of things at all, because remember, the whole app marketplace. I mean, if you think about food and recipe apps, there are so many of them. So you can always do software and hardware, right? So that really opens it up to, I did an app show, I've done it for the past 4 years, and people have said, oh, we're going to run out of apps. We never ran out of apps. I could have done a show every single day. So I think with smart technology in the kitchen, there's tons of stuff to do.
This is really cool.
Fun.
I like it. iPad connected kitchen scale. My iPad is my kitchen companion. In fact, even when it's so weird, even when I am going through, I did this last night with this Brussels sprout recipe that I got off of a recipe. I've made it so many times that I know how to make it, but I feel better when the iPad is kind of near me. It's so I can pull up the recipe and just
a crutch.
Yeah, it's my crutch. It really is. Something about the laptop it takes up too much space. It's not quite right. Just having my little iPad propped over in the edge of my kitchen, it always makes me feel better, because I know it's there with all of my recipe apps and the internet at large. So I agree. I think this is rad. Even if this particular product, doesn't sell a million copies, it's sort of the beginning of using something like a tablet with a add-on product that can change the way that we do things.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. So 2 rads from us. If you disagree with us, please let us know. You can find us online and send us a tweet or send us an email or a video and let us know. And if you have an idea for rad or fad, we would love to hear it as well.
We absolutely would. Well, Amber, I think we've come to the end of our hour. This has been such a fun show. We had Guy Kawasaki, who is now the chief evangelist of Canva at canva.com, speaking with us for a few minutes before he went off to his hockey game. We had some fun conversations. We checked out Pinterest guided search. New Skype for iPhone is out. We're going to be speaking with a jewelry maker that helps you know when somebody has texted you next week. It's all fun stuff. So, Amber, what do you have going on in the next week?
I've been doing a lot of traveling lately, so I am home for about almost 3 weeks, and I cannot tell you how happy I am, because I've had my suitcase packed for about 2 months on the road, on and off, and it's nice to be home. I feel like I try to battle travel in the sense that I think that, it shouldn't exhaust me, but at the end of the day, it just does.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I find that at least when I travel, you travel more than I do, but when I travel regularly enough, the suitcase never really gets unpacked.
It never does.
Even though that would be the right thing to do, it's kind of like making your bed every day. I'm like, I'm just going to be back in there, though. So some of that stuff is just going to stay there in the corner of the room, and you never really feel settled. So I'm happy for you.
Thank you. It'll be nice to unpack that little suitcase of mine.
Absolutely. All right, well, thanks everybody for watching this episode of The Social Hour. It's been very fun. Until next week, I'm Sarah Lane.
And I'm Amber MacArthur, and we'll see you soon.